Do you like dungeons?
If you kill us all in this dungeon, how are you gonna feel?
14 acid damage.
How about dragons?
Is there a dragon here, though?
There could be.
I'm Paul, the DM and producer of Make Believe Heroes, a 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons adventure for all ages. If you're looking for top quality production values, including music, sound effects, with humor, heart, and occasionally a bit of horror, then go now and check out Make Believe Heroes, a proud member of the Potteration Network.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Potteration. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
Welcome to the All Things Nintendo podcast. I'm Brian Shea, and this is a weekly podcast to discuss all the biggest news and games from the world of Nintendo. After a couple of special episodes, we are back to our regularly scheduled programming. This week, we not only got a game-specific Nintendo Direct, but also a big expansion to a game that I consider my game of the year 2026 so far. On top of that, we've got a little bit of news to get to, and joining me for all of that is someone who has been in the games media space about as long as I have. It's Hayes Madsen. Hayes, how are you doing?
Hey, I am doing good. I now feel very old now that you said that.
Why? Because I'm so old, so therefore you must be extremely old.
Just reminded me how long I've actually been doing this.
I mean, we're both coming up on 2 decades in the games media space, so I don't know how it happened, but we've somehow ascended to like elder statesman status in recent years.
It happened without me even knowing it. I can still remember my first E3 and being like,
Same.
oh wow, I made it. And that was what, 14 years ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I still remember my first E3, which was 12 years ago. And it, I was I still wasn't at Game Informer. I was freelancing for like OXM and Kotaku and IGN and a few other outlets. And I remember like feeling a little bit discouraged at the end of it, but I having a great time. And I went to breakfast on the last day that I was there with a couple of established journalists. I'm not going to name names, but one of them, like, I was just like, oh yeah, like it sucks that now I'm like going back to like the real world, because like I always felt like when I went to these things before it was my full-time job, it was almost like, you go to like a PAX or something and you see cosplayers walking around. That's almost how I felt as a games journalist going to PAX who wasn't doing it full-time, where I was like, oh cool, I got to live my fantasy of being a games journalist or a games media person, and now it's back to testing applications that I don't care about, or being a consultant for this state's healthcare.gov system or whatever I was doing at the time. And it always felt that way. But I remember the journalist that I was with said, well, hey, you made it to one E3, so that's something you can hang your hat on. And I was just like thinking in my head, like, this is hopefully not the only E3 I make it to. And
I had that experience for years too, because I was a manager in a movie theater for a very long time while I was doing media as well. And so I know that feeling exactly. And even sometimes like still going to events, it's like events are different than the day to day, right?
Yeah,
it's
they very much are.
It's a reminder of like, oh, I'm actually doing the job instead of like sitting at my computer for 10 hours a day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that note, though, I saw the news that you have a new job.
I do.
For many years, you were in charge of Inverse's gaming content, but, sadly, that came to an end somewhat recently. But I just saw that you are now a junior producer at a studio that has actually done some unbelievably cool stuff and putting out a ton of great games. One of the most prolific indie studios that I think I've seen in a long time, and that is Strange Scaffold. So congratulations. Thank
you. Yeah, it's part-time right now. I'm just kind of like dabbling in stuff. So I'm still on the media side a little bit, minus the obvious conflicts of interest. But I'm excited to, I've known Xavier Nelson Jr., who owns Strange Scaffold. I've known him for 8 years, I think. I interviewed him once, and then I interviewed him like at least 10 times in the years since. And it just kind of worked out. He reached out after I got laid off and was like, hey, I'd love to do a project together. And we did that, and then one thing led to another, and I've only been there for about 2 months, and I've jumped into a already in development project, so I
Wow.
kind of like got into the deep end, but it's already been eye opening. Like as a journalist, I learned a lot about development over the years, but even just a couple months on the other side, it's I've learned things that I didn't know. So
Yeah,
it's been fascinating.
I can't even imagine like the kind of paradigm shift that happened in your brain once you got into like the day-to-day like production stuff
Yeah.
and working with Zalavier. Like he's fantastic.
Oh, yeah, he's
I've
great.
only interviewed him a couple of times, but he is constantly putting out thoughtful stuff into the space, obviously overseeing a ton of great games. So for people who are unfamiliar, they've worked on like El Paso Elsewhere, I Am Your Beast, I'm always going to butcher this name. I think it's Space Warlord Baby Trading Simulator.
Yes, yeah. Sequel
And
to Space Warlord Organ Trading Simulator.
and then my personal favorite of the bunch, TMNT Tactical Takedown. Sorry, of course, the one that's my favorite is the one that I actually messed up the name. So this might be a little bit of a tricky question because you work there now. But coming in, did you have a favorite Strange Scaffold game?
Yeah, I like TMNT a lot. I think my favorite, because I wrote about it for Uppercut Crit, who's back now. They went away for a little while, but I think they're back now. It's called An Airport for Aliens, currently run by dogs.
I've not played it, but I've
and
heard
it's
of
like
it.
a first-person like exploration game where you are walking. It's kind of about like a long-distance relationship, and you have to go to the airport a lot to fly to see your significant other, and the airports are run by just PNGs of dogs, not even like animated dogs. They're all just PNGs of dogs, and it's very funny. But I was in a long distance relationship at the time, and it really like struck a chord with me. I don't. That's not something you often see a lot of games talk about in a meaningful way, I don't think.
No, that's fantastic that they touched on that. And I love that we're getting more and more of that in the space where it's like just these hyper specific narrative threads. Like Unpacking is a great example of like, just somebody who moves a lot, and then you get to see the evolution of their life as they, go from like being a little kid to being a teenager to going to college to coming back and getting into a long-term relationship, and then moving into a smaller apartment, half the stuff, it's like, I think I know what that means. So
I think Consume Me is another good example, like this
Absolutely.
autobiographical game that's so like steeped in the creator's own life and experiences. And Despelote is another one. I really love Despelote.
Yeah, lots of amazing things that would seem extremely niche in terms of like the appeal, but that authenticity really, you feel it when these developers do it right. Whether it is Despelote, where you're walking around a Latin American country just kicking the soccer ball in the midst of World Cup fever, like that's how you experience that entire game, and it's resonated with so many people. Not because we're all living in Latin American countries kicking a soccer ball to people, but because it has authenticity.
Not because I even like care all that much about the World Cup. Like I do watch the World Cup, but it was the kind of thing where it's like the authenticity of it, I think, translates to a genuine kind of like learning experience of a perspective that you had never even thought of yourself.
Well, I can't wait to hear whatever it is that you're working on with Strange Scaffold. I'm assuming you're working with Mike Futter over there?
Yeah, we're not working on the same project, but I work alongside.
He's on the team.
Yeah.
Another former guest he's been on he'll be on the show again, but he has been on the show multiple times, and he always brings the heat whenever he comes on the show. So I'm happy that another member of Strange Scaffold family is coming on the show.
He's one of the most knowledgeable people in the industry, honestly.
He has an incredible business acumen. Obviously, he has an MBA. He worked at Game Informer for several years. He was the news editor when I first joined back in 2015.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So I've worked with him as well. So that's awesome that you guys are working together. And I think that
hear this a lot, but it's a small industry.
Yes. And Elise Favis, I believe,
she
works
PR.
with.
Yeah.
So another former Game Informer colleague of mine, and another former guest of All Things Nintendo. So here we go, full circle. It's great to have you on again, Hayes. All that to say, congratulations on the new job.
Thank you.
A reminder that this show is brought to you by the fine folks who support me on Patreon. Without them, this show literally would not exist. You can get access to the community Discord for as little as $3 a month, wherever they're talking Nintendo, doing the occasional community night. Speaking of which, next weekend, we are doing a Splatoon Raiders community night. So $3 gets you into the community Discord where we are going to be coordinating on that. We are very much looking forward to jumping into some Splatoon Raiders, rotating through groups of 4, just having a blast for a couple of hours on a Friday night. That will be August 14th. You can get more details over on the Patreon page. So that's just $3 a month, but there are also $5 and $10 tiers. The $5 tier gets you early and ad-free episodes, and the $10 tier gets you shout-outs at the end of every show, as well as the semi-regular All Things Gamers bonus podcast. Usually this is a podcast where I just jump in front of a microphone and talk to myself for an hour whenever I have something to say. I've done like Summer Game Fest recaps. I've done, I did a recap of the PlayStation State of Play a few weeks ago. This past weekend, it wasn't really a gamer specific thing. I invited our friend Ben Richland, who is a former guest of this show, and we reviewed Spider-Man Brand New Day. It is not a game-specific thing, but I think that's gaming adjacent enough. And plus, look at those box office numbers, and you see that I would bet a large percentage of the listeners of this show went and saw that movie in theaters because it's breaking all kinds of records. So that is the most recent episode of that. I have other ideas in the hopper, so I would expect more All Things Gamers podcasts going out in the near future, but that is exclusive to the $10 patrons. Just goes out whenever I have something I want to talk about that's not Nintendo related. If you want to be part of the group that keeps this show going, head to patreon.com and search for Brian Shea or All Things Nintendo. All right, Hayes, let's get into some of the news here before we talk about some of the bigger talkers that we mentioned in the intro of this episode. We have some hot off the press Nintendo sales data. And, I'm not on Twitter anymore. I haven't been on Twitter for a few years now. But there's a user over there by the name of Pierre485 who does great work sorting through all of the data that Nintendo puts out in their financial reports every quarter. So just want to give a plug there because I did pull some highlights from there. If you want even more granular data, you can go check out Pierre485's thread. It's huge. It just goes on and on and on. So I pulled some of the highlights out of that and also, looked at cross-referencing other data and everything for this. But first up, the Switch 2 has sold nearly 24 million units, which makes it the fastest selling Nintendo console after 5 quarters. It has already beaten the lifetime sales of the GameCube and the Wii U and is less than 10 million units from overtaking the Nintendo 64's lifetime sales. So incredibly impressive numbers from the Switch 2, especially considering all of the speed bumps. That's the word I'm looking for, with like all the economic stuff, with all of like the tariffs, with all of the chip shortages and all that stuff that's happening right now, where prices are going to be going up and people seemingly don't have a ton of money to spend on games right now. So this is a monumental accomplishment by Nintendo, outselling the GameCube in just over a year. I
realized the GameCube didn't only sold that much. Yeah. I mean, it's weird because it's such a it's looked back on as such a beloved console, but it was not like a smash success at the time that it came out.
Yeah, and I mean, I think I always overstate kind of the impact of the Nintendo 64 in my own mind as well. And I remember when I was a kid, I thought there were a bajillion Nintendo 64 games. And then you look at the library itself and it's like, wow, this was like meager compared to like other Nintendo consoles, especially like the SNES and the NES. Like the N64's number of games that it put out just dropped off a cliff. And the sales obviously were not incredible, but they did blow the GameCube out of the water. We still have 10 million units to go before the Switch 2 is going to hit the N64, which, I would, if I was a betting man, I would say that's going to happen probably in the next year.
Yeah.
People are going to continue adopting the Switch 2, but a few games that were highlighted during the Nintendo financial report here. Tomodachi Life, Living the Dream, sold surprisingly well.
That's the one that surprises me. Like, I knew it was popular, but I guess I didn't know it was that popular.
Yeah, so it sold nearly 8 million copies. And for reference, the first Tomodachi Life on 3DS only sold just under 7 million copies in its entire lifetime. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream passed that in, what are we, 4 months deep into its existence, or less than that, right? What was that, May or June?
Yeah. Does that make it the second best-selling game on Switch 2 then?
It
after
does
Mario
not.
Kart?
We will get to that in a second. Pokopia, 3.7 million units sold, making it the best-selling Pokemon spin-off since Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness, which came out in 2007 in Japan, 2008 everywhere else. Pokemon Legends ZA has reached around 13 million copies across both Switch and Switch 2. Mario Kart World, like you mentioned, continues to be the top-selling game on Switch 2, has sold nearly 15.5 million units to date. It's also, this is a pretty fascinating stat here, the fastest-selling Mario Kart game of all time outside of Mario Kart Wii. Which Mario Kart Wii came out later in the cycle, you know? So, like, there were more people who had Wiis than had Switch 2s at the start of the Switch 2 life cycle, obviously, because Mario Kart World launched the exact same day as the Switch 2, whereas Mario Kart Wii launched, you know, a couple years after the Wii was already on the market, and it was already a huge success. So that's a pretty substantial stat there, and outsold Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in terms of like speediness.
Yeah.
So here's the list of the top-selling Switch 2 games so far. Number 1, Mario Kart World at about 15.5 million. Number 2, Donkey Kong Bonanza, 4.8 million units. Number 3, Pokemon Legends ZA at 4 million units. Number 4, Pokemon Pokopia at 3.7 million. Number 5, Kirby Air Riders 1.9. And Super Mario Party Jamboree 1.1. The reason that Tomodachi Life Living the Dream isn't on there is because that is technically a Switch 1 game. So that's only Nintendo Switch 2 editions that are on that list there. So, I mean, if you want to lump that in there, then it fits in with Donkey Kong Bonanza. It fits in over that because that was 4.8 million, but it would kind of be cheating to lump that in, since I would imagine a hefty portion of that were Switch 1 owners that haven't upgraded to the Switch 2 yet.
There's a game that's conspicuously missing to me.
Metroid Prime 4?
Yep, exactly.
They confirmed that it sold between Switch 1 and Switch 2 versions over 1 million units. That was I think the first quarter of this fiscal year they announced that, but they have not given us more data. And the list that I just read off is the list of first-party titles that have reached at least 1 million units sold on the Switch 2, which is why it's only a top 6, because Nintendo has not released data for the other first-party games that have not reached 1 million units sold. So, you know, things like Dragon Drive, things like Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, those aren't accounted for because they haven't hit that 1 million mark. So Nintendo's kind of not being forthcoming with those. So the fact that Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is not to that point doesn't bode great. Even though it did hit that 1 million mark earlier in the year across both, it did not hit it on the Switch 2, it seems.
Yeah, Metroid games have always been lower sellers than other series, but I think especially with 4, like, the reception to it when it came out was just extremely muted. It came and then it was gone. And normally with Nintendo games, I think you see a little bit of a tail in how long people talk about them.
Agreed. Yeah, it did seem, I mean, it might have been the timing of it, because it released in early December, which is always kind of like a dead zone in terms of game releases. I don't know what the landscape is going to look like this year, seeing as how we have GTA 6 coming just a couple weeks before we turn the calendar over to December. So we're seeing all the games come out in September and October to avoid that blast radius. So maybe some games will come out in December. I know we have a Dragon Quest Monsters game coming out in December.
We're waiting for the Ocarina date too.
My guess is that's going to be November. Like, if you look at the calendar, like, it's either August or November if Nintendo is going to go by that the month by month releases like they typically do. I doubt it's this month that we're getting Ocarina of Time.
I would be very surprised if it was this month.
What a coup that would be. Right?
Shadow drop at Gamescom.
Yeah, just Shadow Ocarina. Oh my God. Imagine they showed first gameplay at Gamescom and then it just says available now. That would be the ultimate, we're taking over. Emergency podcast from Germany for me. But so we didn't get a whole lot of news on the Switch 1 front, but the system itself has reached 156.6 million units sold, which is officially second only to the PS2 in terms of lifetime sales. And I mean, I won't get into this too much. That's if you believe Sony, after they miraculously found another 5 million PS2s were sold a couple of years ago, because they saw Switch looked like it might reach their original report, which was 154.5 million.
Mhm.
Switch has now passed that, but the PS2 is now officially at 160, which, funny how that works, as something is finally approaching it. 20 years later, they update their sales numbers. Seems a little suspicious. But yeah, officially, it's the second highest selling console of all time, and the PS2 is still about 4 million units ahead of that. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has reached 71.5 million units
nuts.
sold. When you combine that with the Wii U sales for the original game, Mario Kart 8 has sold around 80 million units, making it the sixth best-selling video game to ever exist. It is behind only Tetris, Minecraft, Grand Theft Auto 5, Red Dead Redemption 2, and Wii Sports. That is some crazy company to keep.
Yeah, that's great. Wii Sports is very funny.
Yeah, okay, that was a phenomenon. If you didn't live through the Wii Sports era, that was a bona fide phenomenon. That was like almost on par with what we had with like Pokemon Go 10 years ago in terms of like just pop culture penetration. Few games here. Animal Crossing New Horizons has passed 50 million copies sold. Huge success there, obviously. It's the second best-selling Switch 1 game. Super Mario Odyssey has hit 30.8 million. It is the best-selling 3D Mario game ever. And Tears of the Kingdom hit 22.7 million. It's not only the fastest-selling Zelda game of all time, but is the second best-selling Zelda game ever, behind only Breath of the Wild. So, Hayes, what do you make of these numbers outside of, like, Nintendo is not running out of money?
I think there's some interesting bits there. Primarily, and, this isn't the first time we said it, because Breath of the Wild's sold well. But Zelda's always been, like, that prestige series in terms of, like, critical reception. But it's interesting to see Zelda get to the point where it, like, matches Mario in terms of sales in some ways. So, I mean, only 8 million behind Mario Odyssey is impressive, honestly.
That's the second Zelda game, or second 3D Zelda game on the platform, too. We had Breath of the Wild before. I think, obviously, the quality of Breath of the Wild boosted the profile of Tears of the Kingdom. But, like, Breath of the Wild is up there with Mario Odyssey, and, like, the only 3D Mario game that came out on the Switch 1 in terms of, like, all new. Obviously, we got Bowser's Fury, but, like, the completely new 3D Mario game, Odyssey is it. And Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have both almost matched it.
I think it's really interesting how Nintendo has really done a good job at providing, like, a diversity of experiences.
Oh, yeah.
That other platform makers have not done in recent years. I mean, you look at that list, and it's like Animal Crossing and Tomodachi Life and Zelda and Mario Kart. And then you have Yoshi in the Mysterious Book this year, and you have Pokopia and the Xenoblade updates. And it's just like, there's such a variety of first party content that I think only comes from really smart streamlining of, like, development pipelines. I think that's where Nintendo has done a really good job, is in how well they've orchestrated the release timing of everything. Because every month you have something coming out, and every month it's something that feels different. So even if you don't like Pokopia, next month you get, like, Tomodachi Life. Next month
Star
you get
Fox, or Rhythm
Xenoblade,
Heaven,
or Star Fox.
Yeah.
So there's gonna be something for you. And I think that's really valuable for a system, because anyone can buy a Switch 2 and essentially know that there's going to be something for them, especially when you combine that with, like, third-party support. Because, I mean, like, Onimusha is coming out on Switch 2 in a few weeks. And we'll talk about some other games that just came out on Switch 2. And it's just like, I did not expect that Switch 2 would become my primary gaming system. Like, I was excited when the Switch 2 came out, but it has legitimately become my primary way of playing games at this point.
Yeah, they've done a fantastic job.
That's kind of surprising to me.
Yeah, they one thing that I've always touted as, like, the reason for this, not the reason, but a big reason for the Switch and Switch 2's success is that consolidation of the handheld and the home console. Because back in, like, the Wii and Wii U era, it was like, all right, well, a developer has to decide if they're going to make a game for the DS or the Wii, the 3DS or the Wii U. And it felt like the developers were maybe stretched a little bit too thin. Like, Nintendo has this incredible collection of developers that it works with. And it would be like, okay, well, the Wii U doesn't have a game coming out for like 3 months, but the 3DS is eating good.
And then you'd occasionally get those 3DS versions, like the Street Fighter 6 one, where you're like, well, I mean, it's technically Street Fighter, but it's not the same game.
You compare that to Street Fighter 6 on Switch 2, which is completely portable, and it runs like a dream compared to like the Street Fighter 4 3D edition that we got on the 3DS. So it's that I think is a huge credit, and the fact that Nintendo is able to constantly give you a reason to return to your Switch 2. And like you said, even if their monthly release this month is not for you, like if you're not a Rhythm Heaven fan, then it's like, okay, well, this month we also got Star Fox. Or like if you're not the biggest like Pokopia fan, like you said, maybe Tomodachi Life or Ocarina of Time down the road is going to be for you. It's like it's hard for anybody who's like a big gamer to look at Nintendo's release schedule and the release cadence and be like, there's been nothing for me for an extended period on this console. Whether it's, solely first party, or if you want to really blow it out and like expand it to third parties and indie devs and all that stuff, like it has just been a constant stream of high quality games.
Do you like dungeons?
If you kill us all in this dungeon, how are you gonna feel?
14 acid damage.
How about dragons?
Is there a dragon here, though?
There could be.
I'm Paul, the DM and producer of Make Believe Heroes, a 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons adventure for all ages. If you're looking for top quality production values, including music, sound effects, with humor, heart, and occasionally a bit of horror, then go now and check out Make Believe Heroes, a proud member of the Potteration Network.
So
the one area that I think they could do better in is the classic, like GameCube classics. GameCube classics specifically.
Well, Hayes, I did not share the outline with you, but that's a perfect segue because the next news item, I've been also lamenting the lack of GameCube games on this system. And like when they announced it, it seemed like they were going to put a ton of games on here, and they put an okay amount, but I think a lot of people have been underwhelmed. We finally have a new Nintendo Switch Online GameCube release announced, and it's not out yet, but Super Mario Sunshine is the latest to join the GameCube library. And, I think it's fair to say that for many, this is the flagship game for the GameCube. And, it's the follow-up to Super Mario 64, which made the change in gameplay a little bit jarring for me. Like I'm not the biggest Super Mario Sunshine fan, but I know this has a lot of love for it. Yeah. It's honestly probably my least favorite 3D Mario game.
Funny enough, it's my favorite 3D Mario game.
Wow. But the other thing is I already have it through Super Mario 3D All-Stars. So this isn't one that I'm like super stoked about, but I can see how it would be a big deal for someone such as yourself who loves this game, or someone who doesn't already have 3D All-Stars.
I'm curious they haven't said yet if it will be is it the All-Stars version? Because there were some control tweaks with the All-Stars version. So I'm curious if it's going to have that or if it's just straight the GameCube version of the game.
I would imagine it's just going to be the GameCube version. Yeah. And the reason for that is the Wind Waker version on Switch Online is just the GameCube version there. Yeah. Which, I would still pay the $50 or $60 for Wind Waker HD on my Switch too. Or same thing for Twilight Princess HD. Those versions are fantastic, and definitely I know that people will be like, oh, well, like they messed up the visuals when they converted Wind Waker to the HD version. I still vastly prefer it. I think that art style is timeless. It looks fantastic in HD, and cutting down on the tedium of the Triforce hunt was
that's one of those things too that like any money they'd have to put into porting those games would instantly be made back the moment they release it, right? So it's one of those things that's like kind of baffling that they haven't done it already, to be honest.
And I feel like every single direct, people are like, is this the time that we get it? And it never is.
There were rumors. There's been rumors for like 4 or 5 years now that they have like Twilight Princess HD ready to go at any moment.
It would make sense. I mean, it would make so much sense, but I don't think they're going to do it this year, seeing as how
Not
we have
with
Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Super Mario Sunshine arrives on the Nintendo Switch Online GameCube catalog for Switch 2 on August 13th. So something to look forward to next week. One game that I am actually very excited for is Crazy Taxi World Tour. So this game was a bit of a roller coaster for me at Summer Game Fest. So first we got the announcement trailer. I was actually at the Xbox presentation. I was in the theater.
I forgot that was at Xbox.
Yeah, and the explosion of excitement that happened when you see people like the stand of the guy setting up like the drinks or whatever, and then you see the taxi fly by, knock over all the stuff he was stacking, and the Offspring is blaring. That was just like, that was the closest I came to like tearing up during this, because Crazy Taxi was such a fun game back on the Dreamcast. Every time I go to Japan, I make a point to go to the same arcade in Akihabara and play the stand-up Crazy Taxi machine. I told a story to the creator of Crazy Taxi at Summer Game Fest this year, where when I was stranded in Kamakura last year, because there was a tsunami warning.
Yeah, that's when we were in China. Wes and I were in China.
Yeah. So I took the day trip down to Kamakura, which is like a beach area south of Tokyo. And as soon as I got there was the tsunami warning alarms, and I'm like, cool. Just took this like hour and a half train ride, and now I'm stranded here. But let me make the best of my day. So I get up there, and just a day of just a comedic errors, a comedy of errors just everywhere, like stranded in a mountain temple for 3 hours, get terribly sunburnt, wander into a nest of killer bees trying to take a shortcut through the woods, getting stranded in Kamakura for 9 hours because all the trains were shut down. So I had to go to City Hall and take a shuttle to the monorail station, and then take the monorail station to Tokyo. It was an insane story. And
Wow.
but basically on the way back, I was like, I just want to go to my hotel room and pass out. Basically, I walked past a sushi bar and I said, I'm going to go in and get some sushi, drink some beer. And then on the way back, I hear the yen jingling in my pockets, and I'm staying in Akihabara, and I'm like, oh, let me go drop like 2,000 yen on Crazy Taxi. So I love Crazy Taxi so much. That's a very long way to just say like this. I played it relentlessly on Dreamcast, and I followed the series all the way through. I was so sad that we haven't gotten anything for this franchise in a long time. So I was super stoked on this announcement. Then all these reports came out, including the Steam page, saying that they used AI on this, which I think that
Wasn't
AI
totally clear how at the time.
Exactly, and it made it the vagueness made it sound pretty bad. It was just like, we use it for development purposes, and that was it. And it's just like, okay, well, we're going to draw the worst possible conclusions for that as people in the space. So I was on the ground doing reporting. I got statements from Sega. I got to talk to the creator about the use of AI. And the official statement didn't really do them too many favors, but talking to the creator, it did make me feel a little bit better about it. It was, basically like, ideation and stuff like that, which is still not great, but it's better than like, yeah, we used it to create all the background assets.
Like in-game assets, yeah.
Yeah. So that made me feel a little bit better about that. And I will say that they released a trailer last week. And I'm back to being full on excited for this game. I got to see a demo, like a live gameplay demo with the one of the QA guys from the team was playing while the creator was talking over it before we got to sit down and talk with him. That looked great, but this trailer just really hammered home like how excited I am for this game. They showed off like it's just basically a tour of the West Coast map, which is like this hilly, like it's like it feels so ripped out of a Dreamcast game, because not only does it have the hills of San Francisco, which was very influential for Sega back in the Dreamcast era, like both in Crazy Taxi but also Sonic Adventure 2, because a lot of the Sega of Japan people relocated to San Francisco during that time, so it immediately recalls that era. But then if you ever have like been on social media, like you've seen probably these memes where it's like, what happened to the beach aesthetic of like the early 2000s? And it's like Sonic Adventure, Final Fantasy X. It's like all these different like beach games. Like Kingdom Hearts even starts on a beach, and it's like, what happened to that?
Yeah, we went to the dour grays of the 360 era.
We did. And this has a very it has a long shoreline with a bunch of mini games you can play. It feels like a perfect like time capsule of the early 2000s. Feels very in line with the original Crazy Taxi environment. Again, very inspired by San Francisco, but this is almost feels like a combination of like Seattle, San Francisco, LA, and maybe a couple of other cities on the West Coast. They also showed off some of the side activities you'll be able to take part in, including a fishing mini game, which I got to see that live at Summer Game Fest. Basically, what they have you do is they have you drive to the end of the fishing pier with like the fisherman in your backseat.
Passenger, yeah.
Then you go in reverse back to a line, and then you floor it, and you have to stop as close to the end of the fishing pier as possible. And then when you come to a complete stop, the fisherman uses that momentum to cast his line out super far, and the further you cast it, the better the fish you get.
That's a fun idea.
So it's a fun twist on it. And then it looks like there's another one where it's like a diving mini game where you're on the beach, and I don't know what it is, but there's like a diver in a bathing suit, and you have to like, I don't know if you have to like turn real sharp and like send him flying out into the ocean, and like it sounds like it's kind of similar to the fishing one, but
I like the idea of having the mini games be themed around like the people you're taxiing around. I think that's very fun.
What's very cool about it is it's just like a kind of an open world style experience, where not open world in the sense that it's all one big world, but like open area where you just get dumped into an open space, an open map. In this case, it's the West Coast, and you just drive around. And then in order to activate kind of like the arcade mode of Crazy Taxi, you go and I think it's called Crazy Rush mode. And you just have to pick up a passenger, and then suddenly the timer appears at the top, and then you have like a set amount of time to make a set amount of money. And based on how much money you make, you get a grade and everything like that. So that, and then it just goes seamlessly back into like just exploration mode. So I love that. And then there's also like rival modes where like you challenge another driver to like racing through the streets. So it seems like they're doing a lot of cool stuff with Crazy Taxi World Tour. So the trailer itself is only a minute long, but it was definitely enough to like get me excited.
What was the last Crazy Taxi game?
Was it? I feel like it was a mobile game.
I remember playing the original, but I know there's been more.
A couple on Xbox, if I'm not mistaken. So Crazy Taxi Tycoon was an iOS and Android game released in 2017. We'll skip that one. Crazy Taxi City Rush, another mobile game, 2014. Crazy Taxi Fair Wars.
Fair Wars?
That was, I guess, exclusive to the PSP? No. Yeah. Exclusive to the PSP, and it was a port of Crazy Taxi and Crazy Taxi 2. So they did a lot of that in the PSP era. Remember Power Stone Collection? It was just Power Stone 1 and 2. It seemed like that's what Crazy Taxi Fair Wars was a PSP port of Crazy Taxi 1 and 2. So there was a Game Boy Advance game in April of 2003, Crazy Taxi Catch a Ride. That was THQ. What?
Interesting.
The last like mainline one looks like Crazy Taxi 3 in 2002
on Xbox.
Yeah. Wow. What a
long time.
What a long wait. And you know, like I said, I'm a fan of the series. I did not play any of the mobile or handheld games, but it's going to feel good to have this back. And we're getting a closed network test. So you need to register for that before August 31st. And if you want to check that out, this game is still coming out in 2027. It's on Switch 2 and every other major platform. So something to look forward to there. And then speaking of network tests, From Software has announced a network test for the Duskbloods, which was its multiplayer game that was announced during the Switch 2 reveal direct. And unfortunately, signups are already closed, but you should be notified pretty soon if you did sign up and are able to get in. That closed network test will take place from Friday, August 21st to Monday, August 24th, which hopefully that means we'll get a release date sometime soon, because I know we've all been waiting with bated breath for this. Where are you at with Duskbloods?
I'm very interested, because I wouldn't say like chomping at the bit excited, mostly because I don't really understand what the game is yet.
Yeah.
Like I know it's like multiplayer and it's Souls style, but there's so there's so much that could be within that framework, right? That like I need like a deep dive 20-minute trailer or to play the beta to really understand what it is. But like the style looks cool, the vibe looks cool. I love the idea of like a FromSoft multiplayer where you have different classes and stuff, and there's the bird guy in it that looks really cool. So I'm there for the vibe, but I need to see more about what it actually is.
Yeah, and I don't know where it fits into the release calendar. I'm assuming like, it
If it's
might
this
follow
year, December, I guess, but
that might be the case. Like I guess that would make sense, especially if Ocarina ends up being November. Like it would make sense that Duskbloods would be December. But again, I worry that would feel like they're kind of burying it, and it also makes it ineligible for a lot of awards, including the Game Awards.
That's true. Yeah. Which From would want to be part of, I assume.
Loves the Game Awards.
Yeah.
I mean, they've multiple time winners of Game Awards, Sekiro and Elden Ring.
Did they say it was 2026?
That's a good question. When is the last time we even heard anything? I feel like it's
outside
been
of the network test. It was the one trailer.
According to Wikipedia, it's 2026. I don't know. Let me see if let's see what the eShop page says.
I feel like there's a chance that could be like pushed to January or something.
Let's see.
If that's the case.
I mean, it could. It very well could be. It says 2026 on the eShop, so maybe we'll get some news soon if they're doing the closed network test now. But we'll have to wait and see. We're going to close the news segment on this. A little bit of a fun note here. Shigeru Miyamoto, you know him, you love him. He did an interview with a Japanese publication, Famitsu, potentially the most legendary game outlet ever. And he spoke a lot about details surrounding the current state of Nintendo. And I found this translation on Nintendo Everything, so shout out to them for this. But first, how the Mario movies influence decisions. He said, quote, "I don't decide everything about the lineup, but we did discuss that we have an idea to include Fox in the script for the Super Mario Galaxy movie. So we definitely want a new Star Fox game. Sometimes things get decided after we've discussed them. We started working on the first Mario movie, the Super Mario Brothers movie, and Princess Peach Showtime around the same time. And we talked about things like, if we have this game, shouldn't Peach be more energetic in the movie too? It was also decided early on that Yoshi would appear in the Super Mario Galaxy movie, so we decided to make a Yoshi game, and that's how the development of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book began." He says, "It's a case-by-case situation, but I think we'll continue to maintain a good relationship between games and other developments." So imagining that we might get more Zelda news around the time of the Zelda movie next year. I would imagine that is a big reason why we're getting the Ocarina of Time remake this year. I can tell you from experience that when I asked Takashi Iizuka after the release of the first Sonic movie, I asked him, "Why'd you put out Sonic Colors Ultimate?" And he was like, "Well, we didn't have the next mainline Sonic game ready, so we wanted something that people could go see the movie, get really excited about, and then go buy Sonic Colors Ultimate." And just something that people had a new thing on the shelf to buy, or a new thing on the digital store to buy surrounding the IP, because, as Takashi Iizuka told me, he had never seen such enthusiasm surrounding the Sonic IP, and he's been with that franchise since Sonic 2. Since the first movie came out. He said it's just been a night and day difference in terms of how many people are interested in Sonic.
Yeah, you can even see it in Devil May Cry 5 got a huge sales boost once the show came out. Same with Fallout. Fallout got a big boost too.
Yeah, I just did a big oral history on Fallout earlier this year. And, the entire team was just like, yeah, when that show came out, our Fallout 76 servers almost crashed, and we set new records, and the sales of Fallout 4 went through the roof. And it's impossible to overstate how much these multimedia releases do for the games themselves. Because the games industry, highest grossing entertainment medium in the world, but there's something more mainstream about movies and TV that just grabs a different audience than would normally grab.
I'm very curious to see if Insomniac Spider-Man games get a boost.
Oh, almost certainly.
I feel like they have to. Yeah.
especially with Tom Holland out there talking about how he
They inspired the movie. Yeah.
he was like looking at all of the stuff from the Spider-Man games for like finishing moves that they then pulled off in the movie. So yeah, with Spider-Man Brand New Day just doing gangbusters, I would be shocked if Insomniac and PlayStation are not seeing just massive boosts in sales numbers right now. So his next topic was on Nintendo's philosophy about remakes, because we're getting several remakes this year. He said, quote, "Some people might say there are a lot of remakes, but after 5 years, a lot of people have outgrown games and stopped playing them. Young people today don't have the opportunity to play games from 10 years ago, so remaking them to be more playable and releasing them again is a good way to meet the demand. Letting people know the original games also leads to future developments, so we've been actively pursuing that recently." So that might be a little bit of a hint of like, hey, if there's been a game that we've remade recently, we might be pursuing additional titles in that franchise. I've been saying that about Star Fox and Zelda.
Yeah, I want a new Star Fox so bad.
Oh my god! I mean that's my thought process of what's going to happen is Velen was just getting to know the Star Fox IP through this remake, and then they're going to be able to do their own thing in a couple of years. Were you a big fan of the Star Fox remake?
I liked it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
I feel pretty. I get the criticism. I get some of the criticism. Star Fox is very short. That's just kind of how the game is. But I think overall, I really liked it. It feels like this is probably the version that I'll go back and play whenever I want to replay Star Fox 64 at this point.
Almost certainly for me as well. Like there is a certain charm about like the voice lines in the original. Like I definitely prefer the OG voices, but that's just because they are familiar to me. Like if I had never played Star Fox 64, I bet I would go back to that after playing this remake and be like, what are they doing with this voice acting? Because it's just like the characterization, I think, is better in Star Fox 64, but the voice acting has just evolved so much. The art of video game voice acting has come a long way.
I really like the cutscenes that they added in between missions, especially how much variation there is based on what you do in missions and which path you're on, and like just a very cool way of fleshing out that story a little more. And it makes me excited to see what they could do with like a new Star Fox where they get to tell their own story,
Definitely. I'm really hoping that they do get that chance. I'm hoping that this is now a launching off point in terms of establishing the story, and now they can go elsewhere with it. So very much looking forward to what the future might hold for some of these franchises that Miyamoto has hinted that they are pursuing additional entries in the series. And then finally, Miyamoto talked about the future of his career. So first, Famitsu asked if he would ever direct a game again. And he said, quote, "Right now, I'm not really thinking about it. But with Pikmin Bloom, I got involved because I wanted to make it myself. So depending on the theme, if I can do something interesting with it, there might come a time when I want to do it. I have the know-how," he laughs. Nowadays, if you want to make one game, you have to get 200 people involved. So it's tough. Movies are also big productions, but in those cases, the procedural people are the ones keeping the production running. The producers on set are really busy, though. And then they followed up and asked if he still wants to be with Nintendo 10 years from now, because, he's in his early 70s.
There. Yeah.
So he would be like 83 years old 10 years from now. And he said, yes, that's right. The feeling of, I hope we can keep going fits perfectly. On set, we say things like, it wouldn't be surprising if I collapse tomorrow, so make sure you're okay. I just hope we can keep going without any problems. So the most Miyamoto answer ever there.
Yeah.
Of just like make a little bit of a self-deprecating joke and then just be like, well, hopefully.
That's a question for a lot of creators, because a lot of the legacy creators, are getting up there in age now, and it's at the point where retirement would be. Sakaguchi, people asked the same thing after Fantasian came out, and he said one more game, and I think that's it. So
it's going to be sad when we lose these creators to retirement. We just saw earlier this year Takashi Tezuka announcing that at least he's retiring from his leadership role. He's still kind of staying on with Nintendo. He's just not going to be as involved. But it's a bummer when these guys who and women who haven't have just been responsible for so many incredible experiences and so many memories, and so many foundational entries in this space are just, no longer going to be making games. That's going to hurt.
It's interesting to see the flame, because I don't feel like there's a lot of cases where we see the torch passed. The one that I think is most notable is Naoki Hamaguchi on the remake Final Fantasy VII Remake series, because that's the one where it seems to be a very deliberate torch passing moment. And I think we're going to probably see a lot more of those in the near future.
Well, we've seen that with Nintendo quite frequently, Miyamoto, very early on brought on Tezuka to join his team. And, they were more like partners than, master and protege. But then in the 90s, we got, Eiji Aonuma joining, and Miyamoto was kind of able to entrust the Zelda franchise to him. Now Aonuma is almost starting to pass that torch to Fujibayashi. And then, Tezuka was kind of in charge of 2D Mario, and we're seeing people like Shiro Mori get the torch passed to him for 2D Mario. And then Takashi Tezuka and Yoshiaki Koizumi for 3D Mario. It's been kind of like I actually did talk to both Tezuka and Miyamoto about passing that torch, and they said that's how they've been able to keep up so much high quality over the course of the years, is like they work really hard to mentor their developers, and they have that at least they did for the new Super Mario Brothers series. I don't know if it still exists today. I think it might have still continued going, and that is the Super Mario School of Design or something like that, where if somebody is going to be designing on a Mario game, they actually put them through a crash course where they have to learn the core design tenets with the people who have been doing it for so many years. So it is cool that they have those types of systems in place.
Well, it's interesting too, because you see remakes tied into that. Like last year I did a series called Remade for Inverse, where I talked to a bunch of developers of remakes, and a very common sentiment that I see is that remakes are a way for younger developers to come to grips with the systems and the series. And Nihon Falcom has talked about multiple times about how the Trails remakes, they particularly did them for younger developers to come to grips with the systems and the story of the series before moving on to development in future titles.
Yeah, and I've definitely talked about that with Pokemon's Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee they were learning how to make console games. Halo Campaign Evolved just came out. That's them learning how to use Unreal Engine while also celebrating the anniversary of the Halo series. So there's all kinds of different utilities for remakes. So I know that people get down on remakes a lot because they were like, oh, I want something new, but it sometimes is that necessary stepping stone. And also often they aren't mutually exclusive. If a studio is doing a remake, chances are it might be a prototyping of some sort for a future entry. Whether we ever get that entry or not, it's also sometimes a testing ground of does anybody care about this franchise anymore? Let's put out a remake and take the temperature. And if it sells well, we'll maybe make something new. And if it doesn't,
the answer is no.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all we had for the main news segment, but we're going to take our first break of this episode. And when we get back, we're going to be breaking down another big piece of news, the Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave Nintendo Direct that aired this week. We will be right back.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
We are back, and while my most anticipated Nintendo game for the rest of 2026 is clearly The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, and I've made that pretty well known, I completely understand if your opinion differs from mine, and chances are, if your opinion does differ from mine, it is likely this next game that we are going to talk about. It is Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. It is the latest in the long-running turn-based tactics series, and this week we got a ton of new information on what to expect from the game when it comes out next month. Hayes, before we jump into this, what is your history with Fire Emblem?
Oh man, I have a long history with Fire Emblem. Ever since the first game came out in the US, which in the US was Fire Emblem The Blazing Blade. The GBA one was the first one in English here. And then we went back and got other stuff. But like the very first Fire Emblem ever released didn't originally release in the US until later. But ever since that GBA one, I have been obsessed with Fire Emblem. I played every single Fire Emblem. I have reviewed every Fire Emblem since Awakening.
Wow.
Yeah. So I've been with the series a long time, and I've played every single Fire Emblem that's ever been released, whether it be through official means or fan translations, as some of them require. So I would count Fire Emblem probably among probably my top 3 favorite video game series out there.
Wow. What was it about the GBA that was such like a great place for like turn-based tactics? Like that's not a place I would think
games
of.
Especially. I think it was because like the pixel design worked really well because that handheld nature of it and the sprite art just really lent itself to like the grid-based tactics, because it was like it was a complexity that you couldn't get from other games, but it was easy to put that through the visual representation of the Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance. I think that was part of it.
And you mentioned Awakening, and that is basically like, it's a perfect name for it because that's where we got this like resurgence in the series. That's when it like felt like, okay, Nintendo's actually putting its weight behind this franchise.
Yeah.
And, you know, we got Fates, we've gotten since then Three Houses, Engage, all kinds of great Fire Emblem games in the time since Awakening. And I think you can trace it back to like that kind of being like this nexus point where if that game is not successful, we may never see another Fire Emblem game again.
Yeah, I've written about that a couple times, but Intelligent Systems has been quite upfront that at a point in time, Awakening was supposed to be the last Fire Emblem. Like there were no plans for more Fire Emblem games. So they hit a point where it was like, well, this is going to be it. This is going to be the one. So they went very hard, went all out with it and did things that they wanted to, brought back mechanics from past games. And it was such a hit that it legitimately saved the series, which is amazing.
And then it's a huge success and they're like, great, now we need to go all out for every game.
Basically, yeah. But it's bizarre to think that, because I remember, back in the day when the GBA Fire Emblems came out, and then when Path of Radiance came out on GameCube, like no one knew what Fire Emblem was. Even friends I had who played Nintendo games didn't know what Fire Emblem was until Smash Bros.
Exactly. My introduction to any of the Fire Emblem characters were through Smash games.
And it's bizarre to think that now everyone knows what Fire Emblem is. And that's such a weird thought to have.
What's the best Fire Emblem game in your estimation?
I think Path of Radiance is the best and possibly one of the best Nintendo games ever made.
Wow.
It had a lot of the mechanical innovations, but it also is like flat out the best story that Fire Emblem's ever told. And I think one of the best stories in video game history.
What about the Switch catalog? We have Engage and we have Three Houses. You haven't presumably played Fortune's Weave yet, but are you a Three Houses guy? Are you
I like Engage? Three Houses a lot. Engage, I'm a little colder on. I think it has a lot of good gameplay ideas, and the map design is fairly good, but I think a lot of everything else is just not great. And Three Houses is kind of the opposite, where like the map design's a little dull. Gameplay mechanics, it's not quite as interesting as other Fire Emblem games. Like it's still there. It's still got the tactical depth, but story and like the bonding systems and the time management, unit management, that's where Three Houses really shines. And I actually think Fire Emblem Three Hopes, the Warriors game, is also actually really good. I actually like it more than Three Houses.
Wow. I feel like that's a rare opinion.
Yeah, because I think it gets, even mechanically and narrative wise, like it does a lot. They actually learned a lot from Three Houses to implement into Three Hopes. But I liked Three Houses a lot. I'm excited that Fortune's Weave, I didn't love the route system of Three Houses.
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't, as much as I love Fire Emblem games, I didn't want to play through them 4 times to see everything, especially in a game that's 80 hours long. And I like the idea a lot more, as we saw in this direct, of Fortune's Weave having, it has 4 routes, but they're additive to each other. It's not a choice. It's 4 different characters who each have their own route, and you can play through all of them in one playthrough, and they add up to an ending. You can play through 1, you can play through 3, you can play through all 4. It's your choice, but however many you play with, those characters will be part of your army at the end. And I think that's a really smart choice of how to do that kind of branching path system.
Yeah, so let's get into this direct, okay? So it was about 20 plus minutes of Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave information. I think I've distilled it into the most important stuff. We're not going to go beat by beat like, oh, this weapon does this and this weapon does that. If you want that, go watch the direct. But here's the stuff that I think is most pertinent here. So like you mentioned, there's 4 heroes that are entering this kind of like Roman Colosseum style gladiatorial tournament. And it's the Dagdan Games. And each character that's coming into this has their own reason for entering the tournament. So Kai, who is like one of the main characters, is trying to free his dad, who has been imprisoned, and he's also joining his childhood friends to fight in this tournament. Dietrich is a warrior who is out at sea. He's looking for fights, and he barely survives this encounter with a sea monster, and then he washes up on shore like right as the games are about to start. Then he enters the games because he wants to look for a battle. Theodora is someone from the kingdom of Ceramis, and competes in the games because she wants to honor her goddess and defend her nation. And then Leda is trying to avenge her father's murder, and she learns that her father's murderer is actually in the games as well. So this is like an excuse for her to fight this person who killed her father. So that's the prologue. And then after these games end, which presumably you're going to get like a familiarity with the systems, familiarity with all the heroes, there's actually a 5-year time skip into the future, which is very pertinent for me because I'm currently watching House of the Dragon. And if you've watched that show, there's plenty of time skips in that series. Basically, in those 5 years, the Empire of Dagdan has fallen, and the 4 heroes that you saw in the prologue have completely disappeared. And then there's this demon god called Balor, who is just taking over the world, and he's about to claim victory in this conquest over the world. But the progenitor god summons your customizable protagonist and asks them to save the world. Just casually, hey, mind
good
doing
old Fire
this?
Emblem stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So they I feel like they drew inspiration from Breath of the Wild in the way they're doing this, right? So stop me if you've heard this one before. So you can choose to fight Balor, the main antagonist, right away, but it might be super difficult to do it at like the early juncture of the game. I'm sure people will be able to do that eventually. There's going to be speed runs, like no hero runs, whatever. Or you can go and recruit the missing heroes by time traveling and recruiting them and playing through their storylines. And as you go through these recruitment, you can swap between the heroes, even if they're taking place at different points in the timeline, which allows you, as you referred to in the beginning, to get all of these story perspectives without having to play the game just over and over and over again. And it also, as you recruit them, you get more powerful for your final battle against Balor. So I think about that and I think, okay, you can go straight to the final battle. That's like Breath of the Wild. You have to go around and recruit 4 distinct heroes from like different time periods. That sounds like Breath of the Wild. And then when you recruit them, each time you recruit them, it gets more powerful for the final battle. Sounds quite familiar to me. But I like that. To your point, I'm so appreciative that they give you the option to, all right, if you don't care about, Kai's story and you don't care about adding him to your team, you don't have to play through his story. You can just go to the other ones, Dietrich, Leda, and I forget the other one. I don't know. There are new characters. I'm sure I will know. Yeah. So the gameplay, It looks like it's very focused on like the turn-based tactics that the series has always been known for. There's type advantages, terrain advantages. There's new things called combat arts, which are powerful attacks that you can pull off at the expense of your weapon's durability. And then there are blaze arts that are magic spells that you can like, cast an explosion at a group of enemies, or if there's an enemy like on the other side of a wall, or like on maybe even like on the other side of the map, you can teleport to their location. These blaze arts, you have to be judicious though, because they cost the heroes HP, and each hero has their own distinct blaze arts, it seems.
Mhm.
So outside of the core gameplay, there are also like elements outside of these encounters, like you can go purchase equipment, level up your characters, explore outside the city walls. And when you're exploring outside the city walls, it lets you gather information, explore dungeons, take on side quests. And then there's also like pretty deep hero customization, it seems like. So there's starting classes, and then there's deeper specializations, and then a bunch of subclasses and additional customizations that you can apply to your heroes to really just make them feel like the kind of character that fits into your play style or your current strategy. And then, of course, you can equip different weapons, each with advantages and disadvantages. So talk to me about how all that information hits you as somebody who is a longtime Fire Emblem fan.
I like a lot of it. There are certain games that it bears some similarities to. One is the one that I get the vibe from the most is Radiant Dawn, which is the Wii Fire Emblem game that was a sequel to Path of Radiance, which is a linear game, but you have 3 different stories in that essentially, and 3 different armies that then compile into kind of one army by the end. So there's a similar idea there with the 4 different hero paths and everything. There was also 3 tiers of unit specializations in Path Radiance, which again is coming back in this. The one thing that really interests me is the explorable dungeons, which is kind of taken from Fire Emblem Gaiden, which was then remade as Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia for 3DS. But the thing that's really interesting about the dungeons here is that it looks like there's turn-based combat in the dungeons. Not the grid-based Fire Emblem combat, but like Persona-esque turn-based combat, which is something entirely new for Fire Emblem and a really interesting idea, especially in terms of like how does that interplay with the tactical combat and the way you advance your characters, and how do their skills impact the turn-based combat. I think it could be really cool, but it's all in the implementation.
Yeah, I wonder how much they were going to pull for like the turn-based stuff from like Tokyo Mirage Session.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point too. Yeah, which is a bizarre game for anyone that hasn't played that game.
But an SMT/Persona crossover with Fire Emblem, so the connective tissue is there.
It is there, yeah. I like pretty much everything that I saw in the Direct. The one exception being, I can't remember the name of the main character, the Avatar character, Eshmel.
Oh, I must have missed that they named it. I thought it was just like a nameless protagonist, but
well, yeah, I think you can like name them whatever you want, but they have a base name. I think it's Eshmel. But the one thing I'm not sold on is that it seems like that protagonist character is a voiceless character again, like Byleth in Three Houses, which isn't a deal breaker for me, except that in Engage with Alir and in Three Hopes with Shez, they had a voice protagonist. And I thought that worked a lot better for what Fire Emblem did storytelling-wise. So if those 2 games didn't exist, I might not feel disappointed by this main character not being voiced. But because I thought it was done so well in those 2 games, I'm a little hesitant to go back to a voiceless character again.
Yeah, it does sometimes feel like jarring when you have a character who is completely voiceless and they're expected to be interacting with these other characters in these cutscenes. Like the most jarring situation I can think of, and this is not a good game, but Sonic Forces, like when you had like the customizable character, which I think is a cool idea at its core to like give you a chance to customize your character, but like having them like have Sonic, who's just like overflowing with personality, like, yeah, what do you think about that? And your avatar just like waves their hands like a dope. It's like, no, it doesn't work for me.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing here is like these characters in Fire Emblem are so expressive that it just feels kind of And Byleth kind of worked because they kind of made it a thing like, oh, he's quiet, he doesn't say much, and then they played off that in Three Hopes. But and I got to see. I have to play the full game and see how it's implemented, and maybe I won't care by the end of things. But I think the other interesting element is that this game is clearly connected to Three Houses in some way. We don't know how deeply yet, but like Sothis, the goddess that's in Three Houses, is in this as well. We've seen her, but it's like an adult version of her. And Dagdan seems to be to the south, far to the south of Fodlan, from Three Houses, because people have kind of like pieced the two world maps together. And I've seen on social media a bunch of fans have already started pointing out characters in this game that look conspicuously like characters from Three Houses.
Like adult versions or like older
Or
versions?
could be like descendants of them, potentially.
I mean, that seems like the most popular Fire Emblem game in quite some time.
It is,
so
yeah.
I would imagine that having some connective tissue there would be to their benefit.
Yeah. But I think there's a lot of good ideas here, and I'm very interested to see how they play out. Nintendo hasn't completely said who the primary developer on this game is yet, because I don't know why they're weird about that now.
They never do until like the week of, and it's usually because somebody who's reviewing the game gets like to the credits and they're like, oh, this was developed by Grezzo or something.
But the interesting thing about the recent Fire Emblem games is Three Houses was developed primarily by a team at Koei Tecmo, while Engage was developed by Intelligent Systems. Presumably, this seems like Intelligent Systems coming back to the series for the mainline title again. And I'm interested to see, we don't know for sure. But if that's the case, I'm interested to see how these ideas from Three Houses are adapted into Intelligent Systems kind of flow.
Well, the Wikipedia says Intelligent Systems, which I don't know how much I trust that, but there's at least speculation that it is Intelligent Systems.
It typically is. It almost always is. So it's the kind of thing where it'd be kind of weird if it wasn't Intelligent Systems, right?
Yeah, there's nothing on the eShop page because they never put the developer. They only put publisher, and I think that's by design because Nintendo is very guarded about who's developing their games for some reason. Like, we didn't know it was Velen Studios making Star Fox until the game was out.
Yeah.
It's
but
wild.
I think this is kind of an interesting inflection point for the series because Three Houses changed a lot about Fire Emblem. It added those kind of persona time management elements. It added a lot of exploration in Garrigmach Monastery. And it also was quite a bit more successful than any Fire Emblem game that had ever come before. And then you had Engage come out, which was in development at the same time and was kind of a more traditional Fire Emblem experience again. So I'm interested to see where exactly they go with this and how far they push into those new systems versus kind of like embracing the traditions of Fire Emblem. I think this is a big point for the series.
So speaking of embracing the traditions of Fire Emblem, apparently there are guns now.
It's a gauntlet that looks like a firearm.
I love that all the comments are like,
gun.
I know a gun when I see one, Nintendo.
Yeah. There's a lot of memes of the nun. It's a nun with a gun, and everyone loves it.
It's one of the best Nintendo screenshots we've gotten in quite some time. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I always like Fire Emblem for me has been a series where it's like I have like a casual relationship with it, where it's every Fire Emblem game since Awakening, I have at least tried for a few hours. Some I last longer than others. Engage, I bounced off pretty quickly. Three Houses, I went for a little bit. Awakening, I think, is the longest I've played a Fire Emblem game. I've never finished a Fire Emblem game, though. So
some of them are long, so that's okay.
I mean, September is pretty busy, so I don't anticipate Fortune's Weave will at least immediately become my first Fire Emblem game that I finish, but I'm definitely going to check it out. And if you're interested in checking out Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave, it is coming out on Switch 2 on September 17th. Hopefully we learn more before then. We have just over a month until this game is in our hands. And, I'm always excited for a new good turn-based tactical game. I'm very much looking forward to Star Wars Zero Company in a couple weeks here. And Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave is another one that it's like, climbing up my list in terms of most anticipated. Is I introed this segment by saying that, like, most people probably are on the Ocarina of Time side, but if you're not, it's probably this game. Where do you fall on this camp?
I'd probably fall on this, on Fire Emblem. I am excited for Ocarina, but I think it's a little different. It's the new game versus remake element for me. Okay. Even though, like, I like remakes more than I think a lot of people do. But again, it's like, and Fire Emblem's such a huge series for me.
I get that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, some people are going to be more excited about certain games in September. Some people are going to be more excited about other games because there is just a wide swath of titles coming out. So like I said, for me, it's far and away Ocarina, but I can't blame anybody if they're more stoked about Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. But for now, we're going to take our final break of this episode. When we return, we'll be chatting about the brand new Pokémon Pokopia expansion. We'll be right back.
Hi there, I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
We are back, and this week we actually got the first part of a multi-part expansion pass for what I consider to be my game of the year 2026 so far. That game is Pokémon Pokopia, and we got the expansion Bubbly Basin. It adds a completely new biome with new Pokemon, new items, all that stuff. I'm going to be giving my hands-on impressions now that I've put about 5 or 6 hours into this expansion. But first, Hayes, we got some breaking news as we are recording this episode of All Things Nintendo, and it's a kind of big one. We referenced the Legend of Zelda movie earlier in the show. We already knew that Benjamin Evan Ainsworth is cast as Link, and Bo Bragason cast as Princess Zelda. We have our Ganondorf.
Oh, boy.
It is
interesting.
Uli Latukefu. I'm sorry, I butchered that. Uli Latukefu, who I looked him up, and he is most well known for his portrayal as Dwayne Johnson in the NBC comedy Young Rock. I don't know much about this guy, but I can see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
He has a great look. Obviously an imposing force if he's playing Dwayne Johnson, even a younger version. He was also, he's worked with Dwayne Johnson before in the superhero movie Black Adam, where he played the Champion. So we're learning this in real time. And he's an Australian actor and singer. So maybe we'll get a musical number from Ganondorf.
I like the choice, especially like if you're going with relatively unknown in the grand scheme of things, right? Relatively unknown actors for Link and Zelda. I kind of like that approach for Ganondorf as well. I like having not like these big glitzy Hollywood names attached to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this makes sense. I thought if they were going to do any big name actor, it would have been for Ganondorf. But I appreciate that it is. It's not. It's a different. It's just a character or an actor that I don't think I've ever seen him in anything, which is kind of cool. That we're gonna get to know. Like, these are gonna be the faces that we have to transpose our image of Ganondorf, Link, and Zelda in our minds onto these people. And it's going to be tough because like it's so easy for live action stuff to feel like cheap cosplay. And I think that's particularly true when it's well-known actors. And they've done a great job of casting lesser known actors here for the Legend of Zelda movie. So again, don't know much about it. I saw that Deadline got the exclusive right as we started, right as we were about to jump into recording this final segment of this episode, but I had to mention that.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. He's got the look, for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how this movie comes together because
Yeah.
I'm liking the leaked set photos that we're seeing. I'm liking the
The costume
characters.
photos.
The
Yeah.
costume photos look great. Yeah, I'm getting more and more excited for the Legend of
Yeah.
Zelda
We still
movie.
don't know like story, right? We don't know if it's an adaptation of like Ocarina or something.
Yeah, I mean, my theory is it's going to be Ocarina
Hmm.
because we've seen set photos that indicate something, that there are some like somewhat familiar locales, but it could also just be like an
Yeah.
amalgamation. But we'll see. So that's the last news story of this episode. We're gonna jump into my impressions of Pokemon Pokopia Bubbly Basin. This is the first of 3 parts in the Pokemon Pokopia expansion pass, out now, by the way. So if you're listening to this and you're itching to get more Pokemon in your Pokedex, I honestly thought I was done with this game, even though it's my favorite game that I've played so far this year. I thought I was like, okay, wrapped it, rolled credits, did a lot of the post game stuff. I'm good. I got it. I understand it. I jumped into this because I'm writing something for Game Informer about it, and I immediately just fell right back into the game loop. Like, it took me a second to be like, okay, how do I jump again? How do I do this? Like, what? Oh man, how do I make this place my home? Like this house that I just built, how do I claim that as Ditto's home? Once I figured that out, there were a couple Google searches helping me out with that, but once I figured all that stuff out again, because it's been a few months, I am so back in on this game. I love it so much. And I guess first, like, did you play a lot of Pokopia?
Not a lot. I need to get back to it. I played about 12 hours, but it came out. There was a couple other things that came out around it that I was reviewing, and that was why I didn't get to it. And I
It
just
happens.
haven't had time. But it's on my slate for after the terrible month.
Now, how do you think I felt? Because I missed all of the hype surrounding The Witcher 3 for probably 5 months because I was just on review after review after review when that came out. So when I finally got around to it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a generational game. But I completely missed the conversation
Oh, and
surrounding it.
I do love Pokopia from what I've played of it. It's the kind of thing where it's like, I want to play more. And it felt like the game that I'm like, if I have to put this down for a few weeks, I can come back to it and be okay, right?
Mm-hmm. So basically, the way that you access this is you go after you download the update and everything, and there is a free update that adds some quality of life stuff, including a box that is shared between biomes. So like if there's one box, like if you put it in this one box, it'll automatically transport to all the places where you have like this shared box place. So that's very helpful. I still wish I could search for items. I don't think they've added that, but there are free updates if you just want to continue playing the game without any of the additional content. But the additional content is actually surprisingly robust. We're out here with a completely new biome, all new Pokemon, new building projects, new quest lines, and like just a huge area to explore. So basically, you go to Bleak Beach, which is one of the biomes in the base game, and after you've completed certain stuff, there'll be like an area they say, oh, like look over there, there's like an island, I don't remember that island before, and you go over there and you meet a Pokemon, and they say, oh, like I'll teach you how to use dive, which is a special move. Like, and if you know, like with Ditto, when you're going through there, you learn special moves that allow you to access new things, interact with things in additional ways. I think the first one you learn is like water gun, and that makes it so you can turn like dead grass and dead plants back to life, and that's one of your first tasks. This one allows Ditto to form a bubble around his head and go underwater, and that's where the majority of Bubbly Basin takes place. And you're going down there, and because you're underwater, you can also swim. So it's not just a 3D exploration. Now it's 4 dimensions because you can go up as well.
Oh, interesting.
So like when you press jump, he actually swims up. And so you can do that. And then if you're up in like the air, and by that I mean not touching the ground underwater, you can actually press the sprint button and he will swim. So you can just swim at any level at a pretty reasonable speed. And there's just so many caves and so many structures to explore, so many building projects to take on. Like, I was really impressed by the breadth of how much is on offer here. Like every time I think I've found like everything, I'm like, oh wait, there's like a secret passage back here that if I break down this wall, I can access this and it'll let me find like this additional item that I need for this quest that's probably not going to happen for another several hours of gameplay. Like there's definitely times where I'm like, oh cool, I found this random thing. I'm going to put it in my house in Bubbly Basin. And then I'll find a Pokemon that's like, hey, like I was exploring that cave the other day and I dropped this item. Can you help me find it? And I think like technically you're supposed to go down and find the item then, but I've already explored every part of the map before I do like most of the quests. So I actually went and was like, oh yeah, that's in my house. I'll go get that, dude. And like, so like it was amazing how quickly I fell right back into the gameplay loop of like recruiting Pokemon, building them habitats, making it so the environment level's better, taking on these building projects, going around scavenging resources and items to funnel into those building projects, making Pokemon happy, creating better houses for them, like crafting items and things that I need. And then like once you get past the functional aspect of it, it's like, all right, well now I just want to make it look pretty and raise the environment level so I unlock more things for the broader game. Because like, you know, if you raise your environment level to like 5, that unlocks all these different things that you can use in any environment. And I like bolstering my my kind of custom free build environment that you can unlock within the game. I've been continuing that a little bit here and there. But yeah, I'm blown away by how big this expansion is and how like it feels like part of the game and how it adds like all new mechanics. Like
it's especially impressive considering it's the first of 3.
Yeah, I mean, we have, I don't know what the other ones are going to be. I would imagine they're going to be themed around other areas of, I mean, this is a spoiler alert if you haven't played Pokopia, because like you slowly, and I'll give people a second to pause if they don't want to get spoiled on Pokopia, but you slowly learn that it is Kanto that you are exploring, a post-apocalyptic Kanto region from Gen 1. And this, I'm not going to say what like city this is, but you can probably guess based on the fact that it is an aquatic area, what city it is. So I'm trying to think like, okay, what other cities have we not gone to in this region? And I'm thinking like we might get like a more like, oh man, like we already got like a lava biome. Man, where else could we go? Like maybe it also plays off of the Bleak Beach biome because that's the water area. And then this other area kind of is like, okay, well, this is an offshoot of that water area, and that's how you get to it. I almost wonder if we could go to like Cinnabar Islands or something like that.
I guess
maybe
it
like
is possible you could go to somewhere in Johto too.
That would be amazing. I would be so stoked if they did like, I mean, but then I feel like that might undercut a Pokopia 2, which is almost certainly happening given how popular this game has been. Which, I mean, Pokopia 2, if they just did that based in Johto, like, and they just go through all the different environments, like, oh my God, like that's a franchise right there. Just go through all the generations. Like every few years we get a new Pokopia, takes place in a different environment, different biome. I mean, I guess you could just have either this Ditto or a different Ditto come back and restore it. But like, yeah, I mean, this
$1 million
gives me confidence.
idea.
This gives me all the confidence in the world that this game is going to become a franchise. Like it is, like I thought, okay, maybe they used all their good ideas in the base game. Bubbly Basin says no, they did not. There's still plenty to do. There are still like different resources that you can find that are exclusive to this region, new recipes that you can find that are exclusive to this region, new like furniture sets that you can craft and build, and all kinds of amazing ideas that like would have felt right at home in the base game. But here we are, an expansion that comes out several months after, and I'm still being reminded why this is my favorite game of 2026 so far.
I'm excited to get to, it'll be a while before I get to Bubbly Basin, but I'm excited to get back to it.
Well, by the time you get to it, maybe you'll have the full collection of expansion stuff.
Yeah, because it's been how long? When did Pokopia come out again?
Early March, I believe.
Early March. Yeah, that's pretty decent timeline. So I'd expect we get the next one maybe by the end of the year.
I would think so.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we did get a tease, and we'll transition to the last like few rapid fire games that we want to talk about here. got a tease of the second expansion at the end of like this overview trailer that they put out for Bubbly Basin. And they didn't say what it was called. They didn't show any screenshots, but they did say that accessories are coming to Pokopia with expansion number 2. And that's going to allow you to, like, you know, if you want to give, I don't know, if you want to give Chansey like a bow for her hair, you can do that. Or if you want to give Squirtle like a little like hat to wear, you can do that. Or sunglasses if you really want to be play into the Squirtle squad. But like, yeah, I mean, it's cool that they're continually adding core mechanics to this game in ways that I don't know if anybody expected. Like, I thought like, okay, we're gonna get some new content, some new Pokemon. I don't think it's gonna be as substantial as like a full new biome, but it seems like we might be getting a new biome each release, which means, you know, there were 5 biomes in the base game, so we're adding 60% extra content to this game. That's incredible. Impressive. That is a great way to support a game that I think a lot of people are super high on, including myself. So part 1 of this expansion pass, Bubbly Basin, is available now. It's part of that expansion pass. So like if you buy that, you should be able to download Bubbly Basin. You just have to go to Bleak Beach, get the environment level to a certain level, and then talk to Professor Tangrowth, and he will direct you of like where you're supposed to go. So I know that there was a little bit of confusion of like, how do I get to this new content? And that is how you do it. So any other thoughts on this before we move on to kind of the last few games we want to talk about here, or last couple of games?
I don't think so. Not specifically. I mean, you covered any questions that I had about it.
Okay. Well, good. That's what I aimed to do.
Hi there. I'm Hugh from Poderation. If you like today's show, why not check out Dungeons and Dragonfruits, the bizarre, strange, and queer in every sense of the word D&D podcast. Join 5 friends as they laugh, learn, and adventure their way through the weird, wonderful world of Widdershins, where dragons hatch from trees and have adventures of all forms in every shape and size. Available wherever you can get your podcasts.
Hayes, this isn't a new game, but it's new to Switch 2 owners, and that is a game that I think people have called one of the greatest Souls-like games of all time, and that is Lies of P. So first, talk to me about why Lies of P is so great, and second, tell me how it runs on Switch 2.
Yeah, I know Wesley from Game Informer and I have talked about Lies of P multiple times. He also loves it. I think I'm at the point with Lies of P with my second full playthrough now where I might argue it's the best Souls game ever released.
Wow.
Even put up toe-to-toe with From's games. I think it just like it nails everything that I love of the genre, of like this complex storytelling it has that element that From games have of being cryptic. But Lies of P also in the second half takes more of like a traditional approach where it becomes more story heavy, interspersed with cutscenes and very like heavy character work. But it combines that with the Souls style of storytelling to be this really compelling story that's also an adaptation of the Pinocchio novel.
Yeah, which I think when I heard that, I was like, what are we even doing here, guys? Like a Pinocchio Souls-like, but I expected very little from this game when it was first announced, and I am so happy to be blown away by how good it actually is.
The story is so good, and then mechanically it has some really interesting ideas for the Souls formula. Like my favorite of which is the weapon combination system. So every weapon, not every basic weapon, you have special weapons too, but every basic weapon in the game has a head and a handle, and you can mix and match those heads and handles as much as you want from any weapon. So you can put like a rapier blade on like a giant wrench handle, and they come with different effects and they alter your moveset, and it is such a complex and really fun system to dig into how it changes things. And that's on top of like you have Legion arms that give you a bunch of different effects, like a grappling hook or a cannon or a shield you can use for parrying. It has so many systems that all like click together like a puzzle. And I think that's what I really love about Souls games is when they're mechanically dense and narratively dense, but everything is tied together in some way. I think that's what works about Souls games. And this is one that just kind of does that in such an impeccable way. And the Switch 2 version is a good, I would say it's a good port. I wouldn't say it's it's not a fantastic best port I've ever seen. There's some drawbacks. You have a little bit of ugly textures and a little bit of pop in. They did release a patch to do a 60 FPS mode on handheld.
Oh, nice.
But overall, it's like, I feel similarly about this port that I did as like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where it's like, you can see some of the limitations, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's impressive that they managed to get this game on this system in the state that it is, to the point that like, it's almost comparable with playing on like PS5 or PS4.
Wow. That's wild, because
yeah.
like it's a visually impressive game.
It is, yeah. So like, if you have not played Lies of P, like this is a very good way to do it. That I imagine will probably get a little better with 1 or 2 patches down the road.
Oh, almost certainly. I mean, we've seen so many games have those experiences where they launch in a little bit of rough state, and then fast forward a couple months, and it's one of the best games on the platform. So I believe this game is out now, right? Like it's on Switch 2 right now.
It came out like yesterday, or
it did. It came out this week. August 5th is out right on Switch 2 right now. Unfortunately, it is $70. So go in with that in mind, so you don't get to the eShop page excited to buy this game that everybody sings the praises of, including Hayes, and see the $70 price tag and get scared away. Like, go in with that expectation, and maybe you won't get the same sticker shock that I did when I opened the eShop page right now.
And it is a Souls-like through and through, so go in knowing if you like Souls-likes or don't. So that's an important piece of knowledge to have.
So Lies of P, Switch 2 edition, available now. And something that isn't coming to Switch, but I think is something of interest, at least intellectually, to listeners of this podcast, Hayes. We'll close out this episode with this. Just a quick thought from you on Beast of Reincarnation. So people who have not heard of this game or haven't really followed this, this is a multi-platform game developed by Game Freak, the studio behind the Pokemon games. Every once in a while, everybody knows Game Freak for Pokemon, but every once in a while they step outside of that and create something completely different. We've seen Pocket Card Jockey.
Yeah. I still remember Tembo the elephant.
Tembo the badass elephant, yes. Little Town Hero, which unfortunately wasn't very good from what I understand. But every once in a while we get Game Freak kind of stepping outside of their Pokemon comfort zone and trying something new. This seems like maybe the biggest swing they've ever taken in terms of outside of Pokemon.
Definitely is. Yeah.
High resolution, extremely pretty visuals. It looks like a modern game. It doesn't look like a game that's lagging behind by 2 generations like mainline Pokemon games often do. The animations look pretty good, but I'm hearing mixed things about how good the game actually is. I know Shigeru Omori is involved with this game, or was involved with this game's development, and you know him as the director of games like Pokemon Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, and I think before that he directed the other Pokemon games after Junichi Masuda just switched over to producer role. Talk to me about Beast of Reincarnation. Again, we don't need to dwell too much on this because it's not a Switch game, but I know people who follow Nintendo at least have a passing interest in what Game Freak is doing.
Yeah, to try and keep things condensed, you look at reviews and they're kind of all over the place. I think you hear a lot of people oftentimes talk about that solid 7 out of 10 game, where it is a 7 out of 10, but it does some really interesting things. That's what this game is. And as complicated as this might sound, the best way I could think to describe it is if you took Sekiro and you took Nier and you took Pokemon and you kind of put them into a blender. And that's kind of what this game is.
Which Pokemon are we putting in the blender here? Is it Tangela? Because I think that would make a mess, honestly.
The Pokemon element, which is where I think people will be interested, comes through in this game you play as Emma, and you have a partner named Ku, who's this wolf essentially, who's infected by the blight, which is this plant-like growth.
And it's it's created an apocalypse, and you're in a post-apocalyptic Japan. Very
Nier-esque, apocalypse taken over by these plants. But in combat, Ku is your partner in combat. So it's kind of it's an action game, but Ku is very involved in combat. He's an active participant, and he also has these bloom arts that you can use. And he has a gauge for it. And the way you raise this gauge is by literally just by parrying attacks. That's the only way it races. So you got to parry. If you don't like parries, this probably is not the game for you. But as you parry, you build this gauge, and you can press triangle and slow down time, like Final Fantasy VII Remake style, and pick the art that you want Ku to use. And it has various different effects, from like breaking enemy shields to restoring your health to like locking enemies down with roots. Again, almost very Pokemon-esque in the way you have these different moves that do all these different status effects and all this stuff. You can also equip him with different skills that he'll use during combat, like laying flame traps or sapping health from enemies to restore your health, or hitting you with a sensor that like boosts your attack or something. And it's one of the more interesting elements of the game, is that interplay in combat. And the focus of the narrative is also very heavily on Emma and Ku in a way that is Pokemon-esque. Anyone who's a pet owner, I think, will probably like have a pretty strong emotional resonance with this game. There's some stuff near the end of the game that like might have made me shed a tear, just because it's that human animal connection, you know? So it's a very ambitious swing for Game Freak. I think this is by far the most ambitious non-Pokemon swing that they've taken. I liked it a little more than others. It has some issues. I think if they had cut out 20% of this game, it would be even better. There's just a little too much repetition. Like you fight the same bosses and some of the areas feel the same. But overall, I think it's a strong game with a lot of interesting ideas that is not subtle about the inspirations that it has, but ultimately like tries to do something interesting with that. And I think it mostly achieves that.
Is there anything you can think of, to bring this back to Nintendo, where you look at this and you say, oh, Game Freak really figured this out. I hope they incorporate that in future Pokemon games.
If they ever wanted to do a full-on Pokemon action game, ZA is kind of hybrid getting there, I know, but if they ever just want to straight up do Pokemon action game, I think the system this game uses is a very strong foundation to build on. That whole system with Ku and how you customize him and use his abilities in battle, like, I think there's an element there that could be used if they ever do. We don't know. Maybe they won't ever do that, but
maybe the next Legends game
could be. I would be totally down for them just doing straight up action Pokemon.
It really does feel like the Legends games are where they really experiment within the Pokemon formula. Yeah. And then these side games like Beast of Reincarnation, like Little Town Hero, like Pocket Card Jockey, like Tembo the Badass Elephant. Those are the games where they kind of, I feel like they do R&D that will eventually be implemented into Pokemon, whether it's a mini game, whether it is a full-on like action title like you're talking about. I feel like we can look at this and maybe 5, 6, 7 years down the road point to, oh, they learned that from Beast of Reincarnation and now they're bringing it to Pokemon. I hope that's the case anyway, because it sounds like there are some cool ideas at play, even if the game is getting some mixed reviews. It sounds like you liked it quite a bit, and you're not alone.
Others, yeah, and I do hope it comes to Switch 2 at some point. I think we've seen enough games on Switch 2 that like could handle this game. So
I wonder if that's intentional, that Game Freak is like, let's put it out on PS5, Xbox, and PC first, so like we can escape the stigma of like Game Freak is just a Pokemon developer that does games for Nintendo. Or maybe it's kind of like what we saw with Scarlet and Violet, where it's like we don't have it fully optimized for Switch yet.
I think that's very possible, because I know the Xbox version's also been. I played on PS5. I didn't have any issues, but apparently the Xbox version has some significant issues that are getting patched out.
Yeah, we actually were doing the Xbox. Wes, who reviewed it for us, was doing the Xbox version, and thankfully it's Play Anywhere, so he switched over to PC and it ran fine. But yeah, the Xbox version I know was a little bit iffy, at least at launch and pre-launch. I don't know how it performs now, but if this sounds up your alley and you're interested either from a curiosity perspective or this actually sounds like a game you'd like to play, it's available now on PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. And maybe at one point it'll come to Switch 2, but I don't think they've announced anything to that effect quite yet. But it's cool to see Game Freak try new things, and maybe we'll see some of this stuff circle back for Pokemon in the near future. Maybe we'll see some of this stuff, developed in parallel for Winds and Waves when we finally learn more about that game. But we're still, I think, at least a couple months out from learning anything else about that. But Hayes, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of All
Thank
Things
you for
Nintendo.
having me. Yeah, I appreciate it. It's always a good time.
And thank you so much to everyone for listening. As you know, the Patreon and its associated Discord server are the best ways to get any questions or comments in, or to join us for our Splatoon Raiders community night. But you can also get in touch with me at brian@allthingsnintendo.com, or hit me up on Blue Sky or Instagram at Brian P. Shea. Hayes, tell everyone where they can find you online.
Yeah, primarily Blue Sky at Soulfleet, SOL Fleet. I'm very occasionally on Twitter, but not really anymore. So primarily Blue Sky. Or I have a newsletter that I run as well, an RPG newsletter called An Evening at the Inn on Ghost.io if you want to follow that as well.
That is our show for this week. Thank you again so much for listening. Take care. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of this episode of the All Things Nintendo podcast. Before we close out this recording, you know I have to give a shout out to the $10 patrons of this show. Alex Stadnick, Andy Junkins, Ben Richland, Big Mitch, Chad Brecky, Chaps My Ass, Damian Patino, Derek Sigmund, Dusty Beeman, Ian T. Clark, Jawar Hello, Johnny Five, Jose Villalobos, Casey Radio Man, Kenny Shaw, Cody Gibson, Creeper207, MPI Creates, Nathaniel Edison, Ozman83, Paul at Drunk on Mako, Pratable, Rob McCann, Bobby Mac 265, Robert Sosa, Roberto Nieves, Russell Sayer, Smithy Poo, The Gamerheads Podcast, Zane Sink, and Zek 3 Sword Sama. Again, thank you so much. Regardless of how you support this podcast, thank you for supporting it and allowing me to keep going week after week. But a particular shout out to the names that I just read and everybody else who comes and visits us and supports this show on the Patreon page.
Hey there, adventurers. This is Allison, and I play V on the Kids Table podcast. Our actual play D&D series is currently in its 3rd season and includes kids, teens, and adults at the table. It's a wholesome show you can feel good about sharing with the whole family, and it's cut into short episodes to suit a younger attention span. Follow our young heroes on their journey to stop Mallouse and his agents of power before it's too late. Listen to the Kids Table D&D wherever you get your podcasts.